through that. So then Mr. O'Sullivan complains. Mr. O'Sullivan appears quite a bit within IPID, and he also features quite a lot in your affidavit.
Yes.
What was his relationship to you, and what is his role, is he an IPID member? Is he a policeman?
No, he's not an IPID member.
What you've just seen in that clip is not just a small slip. It's not a casual remark, and it's definitely not an ordinary parliamentary statement. This moment has reopened old wounds, stirred deep questions, and exposed dangerous power dynamics within South Africa's criminal justice system. Tonight, we are asking the questions many are afraid to even whisper. Who was really pulling the strings behind sensitive investigations? Who knew what and when? And why are the same names, General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, Cedric Nkabinde, Robert McBride, Paul O'Sullivan, suddenly colliding under the bright lights of Parliament? These are not just personalities on paper. These are individuals whose actions could shape public trust, the future of law enforcement, and even the way justice is delivered in our country. Stay with us, because what unfolds in the next minutes could completely change how South Africans see power, policing, and accountability. By the end of this video, you'll understand why everyone is talking and why this story is far from over. Welcome to Mzansi PoliScope, your home for deep political analysis, unfiltered accountability, and straightforward truth without fear or favor. If you care about transparency, justice, and what really happens behind closed doors, subscribe now and turn on notifications. The clip that's going viral right now comes from January 20, 2026, deep inside Parliament's Ad Hoc Committee, which is investigating corruption, political interference, and allegations of criminal infiltration within South Africa's criminal justice system. At the center of this storm is Robert McBride, the former head of IPID. McBride delivered testimony that immediately grabbed the attention of the nation and sparked intense debate online. In the clip, he confirms something that many had suspected for years. Paul O'Sullivan was never officially employed by IPID, never on payroll, and had no formal authority. Yet, he was reportedly monitoring high-profile investigations, influencing outcomes, and feeding information into sensitive cases. For years, whispers about shadowy influence in IPID circulated quietly in policing circles. But this admission from McBride, a man who built a career exposing corruption, made it impossible to ignore. This was more than a casual oversight. It was a revelation that shook confidence in oversight mechanisms and raised critical questions about accountability. As we unpack this story, you'll see why the clip isn't just about a single unofficial actor. It's about the very integrity of South Africa's criminal justice system and the forces that operate behind closed doors. While the revelation about Paul O'Sullivan alone caused a stir, McBride's testimony didn't stop there. He immediately turned the committee's attention to one of the most shocking cases in recent South African history, the assassination of Mandla Mahlangu. According to McBride, the events surrounding Matlangu's murder are far from ordinary. And then came the bombshell that caught the nation's attention. General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi was reportedly one of the first people at the crime scene, almost immediately after Matlangu was shot. Think about that for a moment. A senior police general, a friend of the victim, arrives first at the scene of a suspicious killing. The implications are enormous, both in terms of public perception and questions of accountability. This revelation has left South Africans asking serious questions. How did Mkhwanazi get there so quickly? What did he see or do in those critical first minutes? Could personal relationships have influenced professional decisions? The clip that follows captures McBride explaining these points in detail, highlighting the close personal connection between Matlangu and Mkhwanazi, a fact that makes this case more complicated and more controversial than anyone expected.
To elaborate on something. General Mkhwanazi was a close friend of the Matlangu family. He was very close to Mandla. They attended soccer matches together. And when Mandla was shot at the first time, after receiving all the threats, General Mkhwanazi was first on the scene. When Mandla was murdered at his small holding, the first person outside the small holding to be on the scene was General Mkhwanazi. Yet General Mkhwanazi does not mention or take the committee into confidence of completeness. In both this inquiry and the Matlangu, he understates his knowledge of Matlangu. Furthermore, he does not attend the funeral of Matlangu, even though he's a close family friend. So I find it a bit strange, but that's not the issue, really. I mean, it's that is clear. Everybody knows it. So Patlani and Mkhwanazi are very close. Mkhwanazi looked after Patlani, and in an attempt to disrupt the investigation. He was in HR. What's he doing inquiring about investigations?
McBride's testimony made it clear Mkhwanazi and Mahlangu were close friends. On the surface, friendship isn't a problem, but in law enforcement, perception is everything. When a senior officer is connected to a victim personally, every action or inaction is scrutinized. McBride highlighted something unusual. Despite reportedly being one of the first at the scene, Mkhwanazi did not attend Matlangu's funeral. That detail alone has raised serious questions about whether personal relationships influenced professional responsibilities or whether something in those critical hours needs closer examination. He told Parliament that this kind of selective engagement by senior officers undermines public confidence and it cannot be ignored. It's not just about a single act. It's about trust in institutions and whether South Africans can believe that law enforcement operates without bias, even when friends and colleagues are involved. As the parliamentary inquiry unfolded, McBride didn't just stop at Mkhwanazi and Mahlangu. He turned the spotlight onto Police Minister Cedric Nkabinde, revealing a warning he says he gave long before a controversial appointment shook the ministry. According to McBride, he personally told Minister Nkabinde that Cedric Nkabinde could not be trusted. He warned that Nkabinde had a criminal record, close ties to known criminals, and could compromise the integrity of the police ministry if given a senior role. McBride stressed that his warning wasn't political commentary. It was a clear, factual alert about potential risks. Yet, despite these warnings, Nkabinde was appointed as Chief of Staff, a move that has since raised eyebrows and questions about accountability within the ministry. This testimony adds another layer to the unfolding story. It suggests that warnings about senior appointments may have been ignored or overlooked, potentially putting the ministry and public trust in jeopardy.
He was the Chief of Staff for the Minister of Police, in this case, Minister Nkabinde.
I think it was already done, but unfortunately I had warned Minister Nkabinde previously, before he was appointed, that the guy is not to be trusted. I said to him long ago after the visit to Mpangeni, but he said, yeah, we must talk. But usually that means, hey, I'm busy now, I've got no time. So it's okay. But I think it was Honorable Skosano who asked Nkabinde, did you also phone Leon Mbangwa to find out what entails the job of a Chief of Staff? Now, who's Leon Mbangwa? Leon Mbangwa is a former Chief of Staff of Nathi Nhleko, and he's a Zimbabwean. He has an illegal ID he was throwing around even when he was appointed, and no security clearance.
McBride's testimony didn't just warn about Nkabinde, it hit hard with a blunt, unmistakable message. He told Parliament that he had explicitly informed Minister Cedric Nkabinde that Nkabinde could not be trusted. McBride highlighted that Nkabinde's connections to known criminals, his questionable track record, and his pattern of risky behavior made him a serious liability for the ministry. Yet, despite these warnings, the minister proceeded with Nkabinde's appointment as Chief of Staff. This decision has left many asking, why were these alerts ignored? And more importantly, who benefits when caution is dismissed? McBride made it clear that ignoring such warnings can have far-reaching consequences, not just for the ministry, but for the integrity of the police, oversight institutions, and public trust. This isn't speculation. It's a direct account from a former IPID head who has spent decades holding law enforcement accountable. And as McBride points out, when warnings are overlooked, the system itself becomes vulnerable to corruption, bias, and dangerous interference. McBride's testimony took another dramatic turn when he exposed what he described as Cedric Nkabinde's obsession with money and luxury. He told Parliament that Nkabinde is greedy, constantly seeking recognition without putting in the necessary work, and is driven by material gain rather than duty. McBride highlighted patterns of extravagant spending, including buying multiple suits at a time, suggesting a lifestyle that raises serious questions about priorities and ethics. What made these allegations even more striking was how they intersected with ongoing investigations. While McBride could not provide full details due to procedural boundaries, he emphasized that these behaviors cast doubt on motivations and may point to a broader culture of self-interest and risk within senior ranks. He also drew attention to a so-called boys' weekend involving Nkabinde and General Mkhwanazi, which Nkabinde described innocuously. McBride implied there may have been undisclosed or secret activities during that time, fueling suspicions for Parliament and the public alike.
At the time, regarding cases that had ongoing investigations, was he doing that in his capacity as an investigator? Where was Cedric Nkabinde at the time in July, on the 19th of July 2018?
From memory, he was off the investigation team. I can't remember the date of his disciplinary or what date he resigned on. I can check it, it's here. Yeah, but I'm not sure. He was not on the task team, according to statements from the analyst and from Sissoko. He was not on the task team.
Okay.
So why is he talking to suspects? And he talks to Patlani also before he makes a statement in Patlani's favor. And there evidence, but I'm not involved in the case, so I only know a little bit from what I hear. He's the lawyer of Patlani also, BDK lawyer. Yeah, I want to sit in here, yeah.
One of the moments that captured intense attention during McBride's testimony was the so-called boys' weekend involving Cedric Nkabinde and General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Nkabinde described it casually, framing it as a simple getaway among colleagues. But McBride's account suggested it might not have been as innocent as presented. He hinted that there may have been undisclosed or secret activities during that time, raising red flags for Parliament and the public alike. This weekend may seem trivial on the surface, but in a context where trust, oversight, and integrity are under scrutiny, even small events can have major implications. McBride's comments implied that senior officials may have been acting in ways that require closer examination, and that their personal relationships could influence professional decisions in ways the public has a right to know. He stressed that while he could not confirm every detail, the circumstances warrant serious consideration, especially when these individuals are tied to ongoing investigations or sensitive positions within law enforcement. The questions raised here aren't about a casual weekend. They're about accountability, transparency, and the risk of hidden influence at the highest levels. This case isn't just about personalities, it's about trust, accountability, and how power operates behind the scenes. Robert McBride's testimony has raised serious questions about General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, Cedric Nkabinde, and Paul O'Sullivan. Some wonder, are these allegations truly about wrongdoing, or could they be influenced by McBride's long-standing connection to Paul O'Sullivan, who has his own controversial network and history? Mkhwanazi, despite the scrutiny, has a record of significant public service, years of leadership in law enforcement, efforts to fight organized crime, and actions that have protected communities. Could McBride's statements be driven by factors we don't fully see? Personal disagreements, past grudges, or pressure from networks like O'Sullivan's? The bombshell here: while McBride paints a picture of bias and improper action, there's little direct evidence that Mkhwanazi personally benefited from these alleged connections. And yet, the public and media may interpret presence at a crime scene or association with certain individuals as wrongdoing. This raises the critical debate: are McBride's claims a legitimate call for transparency, or are they personal attacks that risk overshadowing Mkhwanazi's decades of service? South Africans deserve to ask, discuss, and demand clarity before conclusions are drawn. The Ad Hoc Committee will now deliberate on McBride's testimony, decide whether to call more witnesses, consider recommendations for reform. Observers say the outcome could reshape police oversight, IPID's role, and senior appointment processes. What happens next will either restore public trust or damage it even further. This story is far from over, and as more testimony unfolds, Mzansi PoliScope will continue to track every development clearly, fairly, and without fear. If you found value in this breakdown, like the video, share it, and subscribe for trusted political analysis. And tell us in the comments, do you believe Parliament will act decisively or protect power? Until next time, stay informed, stay critical, and stay watching Mzansi PoliScope.